You are listening to the Pencil and Paper Podcast Network.
You're listening to the Horror Ramblings Podcast, the show about all things horror. We hope you enjoy the show.
Do you hear what I hear? Is that the sound of Christmas bells ringing? Or is that the sound of a chain being dragged along as Krampus finds children to take? Whether you're naughty or nice, whether you're a Grinch, hate. Whether you love Christmas, you hate Christmas, there's one thing we can all agree on. Christmas horror is a special kind of horror. And yes, we talked about that last episode. And yes, you're hearing Lester Blosser and Stephen White on the Horror Ramblings podcast for all your holiday goodness. So ho ho ho, be merry, all that fun crap that you want to talk about. How you doing today, Stephen?
Doing all right. Can't complain.
It's been a minute since we recorded. I mean, a week, but to me that's a minute. That's a minute because we're always trying to find stuff to record, and there's been a lot of crazy holiday goodness this year. Horror seems to have taken over Christmas a little bit more this year. I feel like this year's been really crazy for horror. I know we've talked about that as well. It's been kind of divisive. There's been a lot of unique takes on things, a lot of bad movies, a lot of good movies. Yeah. But we're here to discuss two movies. I'm gonna loosely talk about one that I haven't watched. The other one I know you just watched. What was it, last night?
Yeah.
So. It's still pretty fresh, and I feel like we should maybe talk about that director just a tiny bit, but
sure.
Of course, we can save that for another show. Maybe have him come on. But before we get into all of that, I love asking if there's anything random or anything on your mind that you'd like to talk about. So go ahead.
I actually do have a little business today because I had an interaction on Twitter yesterday, and I wanted to give somebody a shout out. Fellow mutant Brian Biddle. I don't know if he's listening now. He said he was going to check out our show, but we kind of I saw a tweet from them that, I don't know, it was just some hateful prick, just send a personal message going like, hey, you suck. You think you're so awesome with your cooking, and you think you're Joe Bob and Darcy's friend, fuck you, blah. Just, hateful rhetoric for no damn reason.
Wow.
I'm like, who the fuck is this guy? So I chimed in, it was like, hey, fuck that guy. And we protect our own. Apparently this person doesn't seem to realize that.
Yeah.
So we had a conversation, followed each other. So I decided to check out his content. He actually has a YouTube channel plus a Twitter handle under the same name called Mutant Cafe, and has a Twitter page, all that. On the YouTube channel, he actually has some, like a cooking show, has various recipes, plus has horror themed recipes, which I would actually recommend the Ramblers check out.
Huh.
Not all of it is horror themed, but that's neither here nor there. But some notable recipes that I saw was the mutant brain meatloaf, the Fulci face melt salad, and Elvira's Tata sugar cookies.
Oh my.
So, you know what? I thought it was cool. I followed his channel. I recommend everybody else go check it out. See what this guy's doing. Brian seems like an amazing person, and I've talked about it before where I still want to believe it that the horror community is a good community. But goddamn, I'm getting really tired of all these bullies and all these people who just think that their opinion is it and nobody else's, or you can't attend. I don't think when I think of Joe Bob and Darcy, yeah, they've commented on our stuff before, but I don't feel like that we are best friends.
Yeah.
I'm appreciative of any interactions we get from them.
Yeah.
Even John Brennan, who we do speak to more regularly, I guess, I still would call him an acquaintance more than a friend, even though, if he wants to call us friend,
yeah, of course.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. I would like to think that he's our friend, but I don't want to make that assumption. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, we don't we know him in a capacity, but we
Yes.
don't know him exactly. Yeah,
from a real personal perspective.
I mean that's even you and I, when we first met, we weren't friends instantly. It wasn't
right.
But as we got to know each other better, we got to that point, and then we realized we probably should have been friends like 10 years ago.
Sure, yeah.
But no, I get where you're coming from, and I think the reason that it's becoming more of an issue is the horror community has always felt like a big family. Everybody's always felt friendly, and the celebrities from the horror community have always made it out to be that they are friends and they are close to people, and so people take that to heart. And then now you've got these asshole people, these bullies that are like, you're not that close with them, don't even act like you're that close to them, and then we end up with things like this.
And it's like they're jealous.
Yeah.
I mean, genuinely, that's what I think it is that they are jealous that they are getting that attention they are not. And if they would not be a dick and try to interact, because that's the other thing too. I'll tag them in posts, but rarely do I get a response. I mean, there's, as I've said before, we said many times, John will usually like or retweet.
Yeah.
And it's appreciated. It's not a big deal. I'm not sitting here going, oh my God, John did it. Look what he did. But it's nice.
Yeah.
It's nice that he did it. And, it's just, I do it because maybe they've got 2 cents. Like our episode last week, I posed the question, what is your favorite Christmas slasher? What is your favorite Christmas horror movie? Whatever. And I was just looking to see if I could get some answers. Obviously I didn't, but it didn't hurt to try to see if maybe other people would see that question. That's the whole point of tagging them. They have a bigger audience. They can push it off to other people if they want other people to answer, and that's kind of the purpose of that.
It's all about having each other's backs, because I hate to sound like this guy, but you can have all the talent in the world. You can put out content that is amazing, but if you're cruel and you're rude about things and you push people away who would have your back, well, you're not going to get anywhere, because a lot of it boils down to who you know. And I firmly believe that. Now, I don't believe that's a bad thing. I think that when people have each other's backs, it strengthens us as a whole. Somewhere along the lines, people, here we go getting all heartfelt here, but, people got to the point where they wanted to be in everybody else's business, but for the worst of ways. They wanted to be in everyone's business so that they could judge them. When it used to be, I don't care what you do in your own private life, but if you need somebody to talk to, or if you want to share something with me, I'm going to encourage you to be the best version of yourself that you can be. I'm definitely going to have to check out his page, because I feel like I've seen him on YouTube before.
Probably.
Yeah, even before this, but yeah, I'm going to have to definitely check it out, because it sounds like he's got one hell of a cool page. So
yeah, I highly recommend everybody checking it out. I honestly kind of want to try to make some of that stuff, even if it's something simple, like he had a drink called the Betsy Palmer, and why not? I love a drink, so why not mix one up? But yeah, check out Brian. He's an awesome cat, and fuck all these bullies. I'm sick to death of it. I've gotten, I guess the point I was trying to make to him, because I kind of mentioned, I've dealt with bullies a lot of my life as a kid, and even into adulthood. I wouldn't say it's bullies per se. It's just other people's drama,
Yeah.
And you get tired of it. And I've built up so many walls that I feel like I have a hard time connecting with anybody, and people think I'm just, some asshole because I don't talk to anybody. It's not that. It's just I've gotten to this point where I have this filter.
Yeah.
Where I look at people, I hear how they talk, or I hear how their attitudes are, and I get a sense of somebody real quick, and I know whether or not I want to be around them, if I want to have them come into my circle.
Yeah.
And if you're part of my circle, consider yourself lucky, because it's very small, and that's all I can say. Not that I'm somebody special, but it's just, I don't have time for bullshit, and I'd rather have decent people who aren't going to tear each other down or judge people for what they do. I know we judge movies and things like that, but you know what? We never say, hey, if you liked or hated Halloween Ends, you're stupid. Your preference is your preference.
Yeah.
I don't care.
I mean, we've even on the show talked about some celebrities that we've had interactions with who are not very pleasant people.
Zach Gallagher.
Yeah, but that's the way that we feel about it. But we don't.
Yeah.
If somebody's like, "Well, I met him and he's the nicest guy I've ever met." Well, okay. Well, you must have had a different experience, and that's good for you. We're happy for you.
Yeah, and you know what? It's. I would love to have, and hopefully there's someone out there who can answer this. If you have met Zach Galligan and he was the absolute greatest person that you've ever met, please share your story.
Yes, let us know.
Because at least that way, and tell us every detail. Like, did you buy something? or did you just come up and say, hey, I want to meet you? Because if you had the latter version of that story, then I just caught him on 2 bad days.
Yeah.
That's all I can say. But my opinion, he's a complete dick and a tool, and I don't want anything to do with him.
I mean, I've got to be honest. I met the actor who played in Prometheus. He played the really tall, big alien.
Mm-hmm.
And in real life, that guy's really tall. He's huge. And when I first met him, he was kind of rude. Not, he wasn't a flat out jerk, but he had a tone, and he was really just didn't want to answer questions, didn't want to talk. And I was just like, what is his deal? Well, I had talked to the guy that played Marty on Poltergeist. His name's Martin Casella. He actually let me sit at his booth with him that weekend, and we just chit-chatted the whole weekend. Super nice guy, but we got to talking about the other guy, and he was like, yeah, he was a little cranky when he first got here, and it was the first day we were there. He's from like the UK, and he flew coach all the way here after a layover and everything else. So he was not in a very good mood, and I can see why.
Sure.
The next day, he was, after he'd gotten some rest and everything, he was completely fine. He was super nice, one of the nicest people that I had met there. And I think a lot of the times we forget, because we put celebrities on such a pedestal, that they're just people. Yeah. They're like everybody else. I mean, not to bring up a kind of sad story that involves you and Katrina, but when you guys met Stan Lee, Stan Lee's larger than life, and I remember you guys telling me when you met him, he looked like a frail old man.
And I don't blame him for that.
Yeah,
I blame the environment around him. There never once was I sitting here thinking Stan Lee is a jerk.
Yeah, of course.
I just felt like they were just like, we gotta go. Everybody wants to meet this man, and he was just like frazzled, and I hated it.
Yeah, like it makes you feel for him. Like, I remember you guys telling me that story, and I always looked at Stan Lee like just a genuinely nice person. Like he, even in private, I'm sure he was just a gem. And when you guys told me that they were just pushing him through, I'm like, well, that's a perfect example of Hollywood bullies right there. Is you're still alive, you're still kicking, we're gonna push things through. And it's just like Robert Englund. Here I go, get your shots ready.
Get your shots.
He said before that he hates how expensive it is to hire him, and he said it's not even him. He said that there's a lot of projects he would love to work on and not even charge anybody for, but his entourage, the people that he has with him. Some of those people have won Oscars for makeup and all kinds of crazy things. They cost more than he does. It's just it's one of those things. I think we forget that these celebrities are, at the end of the day, they're just people like the rest of us.
Right.
We see them on a screen and everything else. It's just like Mel Gibson the other day. I saw an interview with him. They're making another Lethal Weapon.
Yeah.
And the guy that wrote all the Lethal Weapons, he's passed away, but he was like 90.
Are you talking about the director?
I might have been
Richard Donner.
Might have been.
Richard Donner was the director.
But they were working on it, and he was like 90. And I guess he told Mel Gibson, and Mel Gibson got like really upset about it because I guess they were actually really close. But he told Mel Gibson, he's like, if I kick the bucket, I want you to finish this, because he basically had it done. He just wants it to be made.
Yeah.
But I guess he wrote into the film the fact that Mel Gibson and his co-star are getting older,
Facts.
And I wish more movies would do that, because then maybe we would look at some of these celebrities like, oh yeah, they are like the rest of us. Because it's great when they write celebrities older as they get older. Like, I would love to see some like old buddy cop films happen and people, come back. Just don't do just don't do another live action Scooby Doo without Scooby. Like that would be really sad. Like the rest of the gang comes back and Scooby's gone because he's a dog and they don't live that long.
Yeah.
Just saying. But here I am. Now I'm rambling on.
No, I actually kind of want to piggyback off of that, because something that you kind of just said there, it makes the conceit some actors have that they have to be untouchable. Look, how do I say this? I don't hate The Rock, but he has an attitude about him, and I've seen this attitude in other actors where they can't. It's as if their character cannot have flaws. Like, they can't be touched. They have to be invincible. They have to be unstoppable. There's nothing fun about that.
Yeah.
Versus someone like, and this is the only reason I'm bringing him up is because this was fresh in my mind. I watched the movie Bullet Train with Brad Pitt.
Yeah.
Brad Pitt, for whatever reason, he's never been one of those actors I gravitate towards. Like, I never look at the movie if he's in it and be like, oh man, I've got to go see that because Brad Pitt. But I like him.
Yeah.
He's an actor. Every time I see him in something, I'm like, dude, he's phenomenal. He's a great actor.
Yeah.
And in that movie, he gets his ass handed to him. Ass handed to him, hand over fist, just so many times. And I'm like, this is what it should be.
Yeah.
He's the guy you're rooting for. He's getting the hell beat out of him, but you're rooting for him.
Yeah.
I can't do that with someone who is just, I'm invincible, I can't be touched. Well, then why am I watching your movie?
I mean,
the stakes are low.
To be honest, like the last movie I saw where the Rock kind of got a little bit of a challenge, it was the second Jumanji that he starred in.
Yeah.
It was when they had the new villain that they were fighting, which it's the guy, I cannot remember his name. I just know he plays the Hound in Game of Thrones. And I know who
you're talking
freaking
about.
love him as an actor. He's a great actor, and he should get more like action roles, because I love him in everything I see him. But the Rock like punches him thinking, oh, I'm going to kick his ass like normal, and nothing happens. And he gets his ass kicked. And like you see that and you're like, okay. Like, I was actually amped up for it because you're not used to seeing it.
Yeah.
I know that's a very random film to talk about, but
No, I mean, it's still on par because, I mean, going back to what I said about The Rock, he seems like he is completely hell-bent on making sure Shazam doesn't show up in his film. And why would that be? He wants to fight Superman. Why? Because Superman is weak against magic. I know this is not a horror thing, just bear with me. But yet Shazam is his equal and would beat the piss out of him. You can't do that to The Rock.
But
that's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I'll drop it.
Piggybacking that and going into horror, that's the thing that makes horror films appealing. If you think about it, your survivals of horror, the survivors of horror films, they go through the ringer.
Mm-hmm.
Horror films show that we are all human, but that we can overcome challenges that come our way, even if it's an axe-wielding maniac. But
Yeah, sure.
But I mean, there's a lot of truth to it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But while we're getting into our subject, we're going to be talking about a Christmas movie that just came out, a horror film. Real quick, I just want to touch on the film The Mean One. I have not seen this film yet, so I cannot say for my own taste. I have seen some of the reviews, and apparently a lot of people are saying that it's kind of boring.
Yeah. Now, do you know, I mean, with that understanding in mind, do we know if this movie was made or kicked into production before or after that Winnie the Pooh movie? Because I don't remember hearing about it until after, and yet it's already out versus Winnie the Pooh, which we're still waiting on.
Yeah.
But this was my concern with this idea, is that they're just going to pump it out, trying to be like, well, look, we can turn this into a horror film. Ha, 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 ha. And then it just be, Now, not to say that's going to be the same case with Winnie the Pooh, but again, this was my concern. So I feel like kicking it off with bad reviews is already, it's not painting a good picture. going forward.
I believe that there was just some very small talks about this film before Winnie the Pooh Blood and Honey came out. I think that they pushed it out too quickly, in all honesty.
Yeah.
I think that is where the film is lacking. If they would have taken a little more time. And like I said, I haven't watched it yet, so I'm not going to give it like final judgment right now.
Right.
Because, it might be one of those things where some people thought it was boring and I just...
Find pleasure.
Yeah,
Like we've said, yeah.
It's one of those things I think they did maybe rush into getting it done, and I think that's where some of the problem lies. But at the same time, I'm like, it's a horror movie about the Grinch. How crazy can you make it?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure if they would have, written it maybe a little differently or something, or gotten a little bit more crazy with it, maybe it would have different reviews. I don't see it as anything other than, and I think this is where I'm having issues. The guy that plays Art the Clown plays the mean one.
Mm.
That's what I'm expecting to see, is basically if Art the Clown was the Grinch. And I think that's what a lot of people are sort of going off of, because the film sort of used that in their advertising a little bit. I mean, not in their trailer, but it's been talked about a lot. Yeah, the guy that plays Art the Clown is playing the Grinch.
And that seems to be a very purposeful marketing tool trying to piggyback off of Terrifier 2, which could also back up the possibility that it was rushed because Terrifier 2 was doing so well. They're like, well, we got to get this out now.
Mm-hmm.
While the hype is still good, we can say, hey, look, this guy was in Terrifier. He was Art the Clown.
Exactly.
Come see our movie.
And I think that kind of, came back to bite him, because it's a solid idea. It really is. I think a Grinch horror film would be phenomenal.
It sounds like something that could write itself. I mean, all you have to do is, instead of him stealing Christmas, he goes down and kills all the Who's.
Yeah, I mean, dig out the kids' entrails and play with the army men on their entrails until their parents come downstairs, and then, jab them with some candy canes in the eyes or something. I don't know. There's so much to do. And like I said, by the time we see it, it might be good. It might be something that we enjoy for what it is. I don't know. I do know that the mean one does not talk at all in the movie. That was in one of the reviews that I had seen. But yeah, I was hoping that, and I'll put it out here because I did it and I didn't hear anything back. I tried to get us an early screener for it. Didn't happen, which is fine. Those things do happen.
Yeah.
It is playing in some theaters near where I live. I believe it's playing in some theaters near where you live. I don't know how close, but in the area.
Nashville.
Yeah, I don't necessarily think I'm going to go to the movie theater to see it. I'll wait till it's streaming, and I'll just find out where it's streaming at and kind of go from there. But off the subject of this film, let's get into the subject of another film whose director may or may not be listening to the show. I don't know if he's going to be chiming in. I know it'd be interesting to have him on as a guest. I'm just going to put that out there. Christmas, Bloody Christmas. Sounds like one hell of a ride.
It seemed like a hell of a ride, too. The trailer really sold it.
Yeah.
So
I know you said that the biggest thing for it was straightforward with what it was.
yes.
So I'll let you kind of talk about it, and I'll chime in with some questions and maybe some comments.
All right. Well, I mean, to break it down, I don't know if this is the official synopsis, but if you haven't seen it, this will kind of give you kind of a basic rundown of it. If you haven't seen it and you don't want spoilers, I recommend you stop here, go watch it, come back. If you don't care about spoilers, I really can't say there are any outside of who dies. I mean, it's not like this big twist or anything in the movie. It's a straightforward horror flick. But it's Christmas Eve, and Tori just wants to get drunk and party. But when a robotic Santa Claus at a nearby toy store goes haywire and begins rampant killing spree throughout her small town, she's forced into a battle for survival. That is about as accurate of a description as you can get. There is nothing more than that. That is about as simple and straightforward. That's what you get. Okay. What do I want to say about this film? I want to preface it by saying I don't hate it, but I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I was going to. Now, maybe I put expectations up, even though I really can't think of any that I did. But I think maybe I had set an expectation of some sort, and then it just kind of let down. But I really don't think I did, because I watched the trailer one time and I thought, okay, sold. And then when I found out it was coming to Shudder, it's also in theaters, so you watch it at however you wish. I thought, great, this will be perfect. 89 minutes long. A breeze, right? Seems simple enough. So the movie starts with these opening commercials. Channel 83, I'm not familiar with, but I think it's actually something that the director, Joe Begos, I'm sorry if I'm screwing up your name, Joe. Him and another guy, they had this, I think that's the name of the production company, Channel 83. Could be wrong. This is why I should do research, goddammit. But they start the movie up with these opening Christmas commercials of just fake product placement and things like that. It was very entertaining. I kind of wanted to see more of that. I thought it was kind of fun. And then that kind of transitions into meeting our main character, Tori, who is played by Riley Dandy. And she and this other guy, Robbie, played by Sam Delich, they kind of seem to be our central focus of the story for at least the first half. I think that's a fair assessment. One face that I saw very early on, and this was me trying to watch the movie and make notes at the same time. I heard a voice that sounded familiar, but I hadn't seen the face yet. And I was just jotting down, and I was listening, and I was like, okay. What's that voice? And I was like, turns out it was Jonah Ray. I don't know if anyone, I would assume most of us are familiar with Jonah. I first got acquainted with him through Mystery Science Theater. And, of course, obviously, he's done so much more since then. I know he was at the Joe Bob's Jamboree down in Memphis, which I would have loved to have met him there if I'd have actually gone. But, time and money, man. Anyway, he is like a friend of hers and Robbie's, and he goes to the local toy store where his girlfriend works, and they all kind of meet up there, kind of talk about what their plans are going to be. Jonah and his girlfriend, they're going to stay at the toy store and, do it and stuff. Yeah, do it. And while Tori and Robbie, they just want to go get hammered, so they go to the local bar. Now, the introductions to these characters and their dialogue, I have a love-hate thing for it, because the conversations are so crass. They're talking about, just very detailed things about sex and jerking off onto people and just weird conversations about a lot of that stuff. But as crass as they are, and understand I'm no prude by no means, so I'm sure I've had conversations kind of like this. And that's kind of the thing that worked, is they felt genuine.
Yeah.
They didn't feel like forced conversations. They felt like real conversations. So props to the actors for having these conversations that all felt genuine, almost as if they were given little notes about what they were talking about. And the director was just like, hey, talk about it, go. And they just threw out their opinions. And opinions there are, because not only are they just talking about sex, they talk about music, they talk about movies. Strong opinions on all fronts when it comes to that stuff. Questionable opinions to some.
Yeah.
They were one of the conversations I thought was kind of entertaining is Tori was saying that every time a hair band cut their hair, that's when they dropped their worst album. So she started pointing fingers at Soundgarden and Metallica, and they even went on a trip about Van Halen between Hagar and David Lee Roth. So you might enjoy that, you might not, but I was entertained by it, because I was like, all right, cool. And then later on, they had horror sequel conversations about what's good, what's bad. She was sitting there defending Blair Witch 2, which I've never known anybody to do that, but kudos. She gave a shout out to Hellraiser 3, which, you know what, I'll actually agree with. I love it. I'm not a hater of that film, but during all of this, we kind of cut back to a news story that explains that our Santa, we're introduced to the Santa at the beginning of the movie during the commercials, okay? So the Santa is an animatronic Santa Claus built for the malls, but it's made from military-grade robotics. And I'm assuming this factor is what is to be the catalyst as to why it goes on a rampage. You know, it's built to be a war machine of sorts.
Yeah.
So they show it and it's like, ho, 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 you know, I'm coming to your mall. Blah, blah, blah. Obviously, it's in the mall, and it just, there's no rhyme or reason to its malfunction. It just does. And then there's even a news story that says, hey, some of these Santas are being recalled. And obviously, the protagonists are watching the TV as it says it, and they're like, and they shut it off.
Yeah.
So I'll give it credit for, again, like I said, it's a short movie, 90 minutes or just barely under 90 minutes. It doesn't take long for the Santa to go into kill mode and just start.
Yeah.
That said, it does feel a little extended because we just continue to cut back to the conversations, the mall, Jonah and his girlfriend, you know, getting the job done, and the Santa coming to life and going on his rampage. Now, some people may like this. I think if the dialogue had been bad or the conversation was just boring, it may have been harder to get through. But I won't say it was hard to get through. It felt like there was a point where you're just like, all right, speed this up just a hair, you know. It's like, I got what you're doing, but just get there a little faster, will you?
Yeah.
So it felt like it was stretched out just a hair too long, in my opinion. But again, props to the actors and the writing, however that was done. Great conversations. Just felt stretched. Once the Santa does, he obliterates Jonah and his girl, and then he walks out of the mall. He spots Tori and, I've already forgot, Robbie. And this was one of those things where I guess this is like military grade homing, because he locks in on them. And I'm assuming this is how this works. The moment he spots someone, that's the next target. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So he spots them and he starts walking in their direction. Now, they don't see him. They're just like, eh. And in fact, they hear the screaming of the girl and they're just like, get it, Jonah, get it. Or whatever his name was. You know, they thought he was plowing that ass pretty good. So kudos to Jonah. But that's not what was happening. So they get in their vehicle and they drive away. And then obviously Santa's in tow. They get back to her place. More conversation. Again, this is where it starts to feel like it's stretching a bit because the conversation is still going. And the Santa appears at their place. I'm, again, assuming military grade. It just locked in and kind of, located.
Yeah.
Because someone could argue that, well, how the fuck did he know that they lived there? Let's just assume he triangulated off of satellites, honed in on their phones or whatever. However you want to do it, I don't care. But something to that effect, I would assume. It's military grade. He gets there, but it seems like not a condo, not a duplex, but I guess like a big house. It's got levels, and there are, different people living on different levels. Not an apartment, but kind of,
Okay.
something to that effect.
Yeah.
So he winds up at this one place, and I think they were on one side, and you were thought to think that maybe they were in the same building. But he went to one side, just bursts into this door. Dude shows up and he's like, hey, who the fuck is breaking into my house? And then, of course, he sees it's Crazy Santa, who, by the way, I meant to actually shout him out, is played by an actor by the name of Abraham Ben Ruby. I don't know if you know him by name, but I guarantee you've seen his face in something. I remember him from two shows specifically growing up. He was I can't remember the character name, but he was like kind of the bully character in a sitcom called Parker Lewis Can't Lose.
Okay.
And he was I guess a nurse, he never really seemed to do nurse stuff, but he was like always at the desk in ER. He was just, he's a big dude. If you've seen him, if you see his face, I guarantee you've seen him in something. But he was actually the Santa character. And I was kind of surprised by that because I thought, oh, okay. Because I saw his face and it looked familiar, and then I saw his name, and I was like, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, I just
So
looked
he's
him up,
definitely-
actually. So,
Yeah. Does he look familiar?
yeah, no,
Like, you know him?
I've
Yeah.
seen him.
So he breaks into that house, kills one dude that was yelling at him. His wife hears the commotion. She's next. Now, the kill scene, I do want to kind of talk about this because after all the conversations and everything that was kind of going on, there was a really cool death, and it was kind of juxtaposed with this interesting lead up to that death. Is Robbie and Tori were, drinking and arguing and blah, blah, blah. And then, of course, that led up into sex. And as they're kind of having their passionate moment, the Santa is axing down or going after this guy in the other apartment. And it's just this intense, back and forth between their sex scene and him killing that guy or stalking him. And just the tension, the music, and everything was really well done. I really enjoyed that. Like, it was just a nice back and forth between the two. And then how he killed the guy after he'd already axed him in the back because he crushed him under his foot. And again, this is a robotic Santa, and that head just... So it was a pretty cool, gruesome death scene. So I'll give him a lot of credit for that. Then, of course, the wife shows up. She's... does the stupid thing that everybody does, goes and runs into a room with no doors, except for the one she came in. So she was dead the moment you saw where she ran. You're just like, all right, well, we know what's happening to you. She gets a pretty good death, too. And so this is where I had a moment of like, all right, you lost me a little bit. And I understand that in this day and age, we're trying to say that, hey, anything can go. We're trying to be, risque, and we've talked about kids dying, in movies, and I stand by the idea that if it serves a purpose, I'm cool with it. If it doesn't, and you're just doing it for a body count, I could do without it. Well, the kid here was for a purpose of body count, or at least that's the way it came off to me. Now, Katrina actually watches with me, which I was surprised by. She didn't turn away immediately from this kid dying. She actually kind of threw out a suggestion. She's like, if they'd have had it to where you had maybe two kids, one kid was, all about Christmas and the joy of Christmas and whatnot, and then the other kid was just like, where's my presents, and kind of being a selfish little bastard, and then the selfish one died, then you could be like, okay, well, the Santa kind of has a conscience to a point. And again, I understand it's a robot.
Yeah.
So ridiculous to think it would have a conscience. So perhaps that's what this was meant to convey, is that it's a robot. It does not give a shit. Everybody within its eyesight is dead. And I guess I can see it from that perspective, but it just felt unnecessary. Now, granted, you could say, it was very necessary because when he killed the kid, that's when Tori saw it happen. Like, she looked out the window, she saw it happen when it happened. And then that's when she became aware, oh shit, there's a killer Santa on the loose, we gotta hide or whatever. But that could have been anybody.
Yeah.
Didn't have to be a kid. Just saying. But I know other people could say, well, it doesn't matter one way or the other, but I'm just saying I could have done without a kid dying.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't sound like it really served anything, so.
No, but I will give them credit. They did not make it gratuitous. So it wasn't like you got to see the kid, being mangled or anything like that. It was almost like the axe swung, you saw something, but it was so quick that it was just like, oh, well. And then scene was over.
Yeah,
so
give them credit.
I'll give them credit for that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so I appreciate that. Obviously, the Santa starts to hear him. He comes over to their building, their room, their apartment complex. Apparently her sister and brother-in-law maybe were also in the house as they were cranking music and making noise. Apparently they slept all the way through it. They must have been some heavy sleepers. But she wakes them up, and then they're just like, hey, there's a killer Santa, we gotta just die down. They don't know it's a robot. They don't know it's the robot. They just think it's some lunatic in a Santa costume, which at one point I started to question. I was like, did it need to be a robot?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it does kind of come into play later on a little bit more, so fair game on that. They hide, and then obviously it's to no avail because this robot ain't stupid, and it breaks in, starts chasing them. They get out of the house, run to the vehicles, and granted, it's Christmas time, it's snowing. Roads are slick. They try to get away, and of course the roads are sliding, and they hit a car. This idiot comes out of nowhere, starts yelling at them that, you hit my car. I just detailed this thing. An old car, mind you. This was not some, special, BMW type car or anything. It looked like a freaking Ford LTD or something like that, just big, clunky car. And he comes out yelling as they're sitting there saying, dude, look behind you, look behind you. He doesn't care about that. He's just like, you hurt my car. He dies. Then the Santa continues forward to get them out of the car. Then the other guy dies. And about the time he dies, the cops show up, plow a few bullets into Santa. He's down. They're like, all right. Now, Tori is kind of shaken, obviously, because, everything's gone nuts. In the next scene, the deputy gets her into his car. Then they're just like, hey, what happened? What happened? She's like, this guy came out of nowhere. But then she pieces it together. Now, I'll give her credit for that because there was, she had seen it. She started to kind of be like, hey, that looks like the mall Santa. Now, she wasn't like, holy shit, the robot mall Santa came alive. So I appreciated this. She was more like, hey, maybe some guy went in there because it looks just like him. Maybe he went in there, stole the suit, and now he's just going around hacking up people.
Yeah.
The cop started to frustrate me because he didn't listen. He was like, oh, well, that's just, like, it was too far-fetched.
Yeah.
And she was like, maybe you should go to the mall where my friends were that I know that they work. They are probably dead, too. And he's like, like, just dismissing it immediately. And I'm like, what are you doing? So they argue about this and getting to this big argument. And you're just like, why are you two sitting here fucking arguing about it? Leave.
Right.
There's backup coming. Leave. And you're sitting here giving the Santa time to get up, which he does. And then the next body comes in the form of the cop. This then sets forward. She just says, fuck it, and leaves. Smart girl.
Yeah.
But then she runs into the backup coming, and the backup thinks she did it. And I'm just like, God damn it, what is wrong with these police officers? So they're just like, you shut up, you get off the ground. Throw her into the police car. She's trying to explain herself. They don't want to hear anything about it. They're just like, well, she's killed everybody. I'm like, where do you get this? She has done nothing. Nothing in this film to make you think that she is the criminal.
Yeah.
So this feels so disjointed. Like, why does this cop have it out for her? There felt like there was something missing in the narrative. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and
like there needed to be something to explain why he thought she would have done this.
Well, and that's one of the things I had seen, just real quick. That's one of the things I had seen in some of the reviews. Some people said that the cops in this film were especially stupid.
Yes. Oh, yes. Except. Now, we'll give it credit here. So they do take her back to the station. The sheriff was played by Jeff Daniel Phillips, who's been in a handful of Rob Zombie films like The Munsters, and I think he was in 31 and what's The Devil? Not The Devil's Rejects, but the one after. He might have been in The Devil's Rejects too.
Three from Hell.
3 from Hell. Yeah, there you go. So he'd been in quite a few of his movies. It was nice to see him.
Yeah.
He actually seemed like he was genuinely trying to hear her. Now, what was funny about it is when she got picked up, I thought it was him. And this is where I got confused because when they got back to the station, he was like, hey, we're just trying to understand. I was like, now, wait, weren't you just chastising her a second ago? Apparently, the deputy looks just like him. Like they have the same kind of handlebar mustache and things like that. So it was kind of confusing. I was like, wait, what happened? So I was getting real frustrated because we were also introduced to the sheriff early on in the movie.
Yeah. In
the bar scene. And he just seemed like, he had his issues and stuff like that. But he felt like he was a calm, reserved fella who just had his own demons that he was dealing with, but whatever. We're introduced to him. He seemed like a good guy. So I was confused by that out in the snow when they were arresting her. And then when we get back, he's like, no, let's calm down. And then I saw the other guy who was like, oh, look at her. She's a drug addict. Maybe that's what his problem was with her. I don't know. But he was just chastising her, just like, well, maybe she did this. I'm just so angry. And Jeff Daniel Phillips was like, it's calm. Just calm down. We're going to figure this out. He was trying to hear her.
Yeah.
He was trying to keep everything calm, which I appreciated. But then in the frantic pace of the film, takes no time at all for the Santa to come barreling through and attacking the police station. In stupid, dumb cop fashion, they go out to investigate. And, Jeff Daniel Phillips dies way too soon, in my opinion. I was kind of hoping he would have stretched out in the movie, but he goes out, goes around the corner of the vehicle, and the next thing you know, I don't see anything. Bah! And then he gets thrown over the vehicle. He's dead. Then the stupid cop who was accusing everybody of everything, he's like, what happened? What happened? Ah! And then he dies. So now she's left all alone in the station. But she does go for guns. She starts trying to load up. Santa comes in looking for her. This felt like one of those scenes that went on just a hair too long. He's flipping tables, and some reason the one desk she's under is the one he chooses not to touch until the very last minute. And she picked up a taser at some point. So when he disarms her of the shotgun, she uses the taser, kind of takes him down, plop, she runs off. You feel like in that moment, you had him dead to rights. Take the shotgun, kapow, kapow, kapow. Blow it to smithereens. Let's not do that. Let's run. So she runs off. She gets to the ambulance that he rolled up in. Surprisingly, it still works after he smashed into everything. So she starts off down the road. Santa comes, T-1000ing after her, jumps on the back, climbs in, and is trying to chase her down. She finds an opportunity to smash into a car straight ahead at top speed as he's coming after her. And when she does, he flies through the window, plops down. You can tell he's still alive because they kind of mangled his face a little bit, and you can kind of see the green, robotics coming out of his face. And she kind of has him dead to rights because he's struggling to get up. She takes the car that she hit, floors it with the ambulance, and then flips it over onto its arm. Ha, you got him pinned. Then she takes a rag, lights part of her shirt into the gas tank, blow that son of a bitch up. This sounds great, but in my opinion, you had an axe. His axe that was right there. You could have just yank from him, since he's pinned, and chop him to bits. Again, this is the way I'm seeing it in my head. The logical thought process. But you'd also think blowing it to smithereens should work too. But again, remember, it's military grade. So it's not just going to go down so easy. And it doesn't, because she blows it to smithereens, and then it pulls the Terminator trick, where it's and just comes out of the fire all half burnt, and you see its skull and everything like that. So it's going to come back after her. Now she runs into a nearby record store, which, hats off to the production designer, because they wrote "Lemmy is God" on the wall. Anybody who doesn't know what that means, that's Motorhead. Just look it up. Lemmy is God, by the way. And she tries to hide from him as he comes, barreling in. Now he's got these two big green laser eyes just centering in on everything, so you can see exactly where he's eyeballing. She finds a sword that looks very He-Man-esque, at least I thought so, and lunges it into him. Now he's sparking everywhere and just and you thought, all right, well, she got him. No. So then it starts to come back alive as she's trying to get out again, and she's sparks flying everywhere. You'd think this thing was going to go down. I felt like it came back one extra time just to cut her fingers off because she loses a handful of her fingers. I didn't really see why that was necessary, but okay. And it chases her up to the desk where Lemmy is God is sitting, and she pulls out the electrical wires from the wall, jams it into it, and fries it. It's dead.
Wow.
So we think. And then she gets out, and then she's got this maddening look on her face, and then that's it. End of story.
Leaves you hanging a little bit.
It does a little bit. Like I said, by the end of it, it just felt like there was little meat to the story, to the point where they had to stretch it out just a little bit. They had to figure, all right, well, we got to fill a little bit more time. So what can we do? Because it felt so many times this thing had been taken down and then it comes back. Taken down, and then it comes back. Now, granted, we've seen this in other movies. So I can't sit there and say, oh man, why can't it just die, man? Again, we've seen it. but it just felt like maybe one too many. For a lot of the things in this movie, it felt like they took it just one step too far. You know what I mean? Just to stretch it out just a little bit longer. They were just like, all right, we can stretch this out just a little bit more to pad the time, and then we're going to stretch this out just a little bit more to pad the time. I hate to give it that kind of criticism, but it's true, at least from where I'm sitting.
Yeah.
I did kind of say to you off mic that the film, I have to give it credit for being simple and to the point. You know what you are getting with this movie.
Yeah.
Okay? There's nothing more than robotic Santa goes on killing spree. That's it. That you know exactly what you're getting. So for that, hats off. You did what you said you were going to do. That's what you present. Thank you. And how many horror movies do the very same thing? That's why I feel like I can't criticize it on some level to say that it was bad.
Yeah.
Because there are so many horror films out there that work with a premise that they either overcomplicate for no reason when it could have been simple and worked just as well, or they simplify it so much that you're just left wondering like, what? I don't understand what is going on, and you're more confused than you were when you came in because you thought you were coming in for one movie, and then they were like, nope, it was this, haha, we got you, but it was absolutely unnecessary. This is it. You get what you get, and at the moment, I don't know if I would come back to this, but I don't think, like, if I had come over to your house and you're like, hey, yeah, we're watching Christmas Belated Christmas, I wouldn't be like, I'm out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I would be like, okay. Like, I wouldn't not watch this again. I just don't know if I would go out of my way to watch it again.
It almost sounds to me like it would be a film that would be the kind of film you would put on, like, if you were having a Christmas party. I know that sounds weird, but so people could talk about it and be like, man, why are they doing that?
Yeah, like I could definitely see it being something on rotation at like if you're having, like, we've talked about doing movie nights and stuff like that. So Christmas time rolls around and we're like, hey, we're gonna watch some Christmas horror movies. So what do we got? If this one wound up in the rotation, I wouldn't call it a bad thing.
Yeah.
I mean, there are worse Christmas horror movies out there. And this is far from the worst Christmas-themed horror film I've ever seen. So I just understand my criticisms are not trying to tear it down and say it's terrible, it's awful, don't go watch it. But they're just criticisms from story standpoints, just how it feels padded. But overall, I mean, you get what you get, and I appreciate that.
Now, do you think if they would have made it a little bit longer of a movie and maybe gotten into adding some meat to the characters, that would have been, and maybe explained a little bit more about the robot Santa? Do you think it would have been a different film? I even thought about that too, because at some point, as I saw what they were padding, I almost felt like that if you had gone into great detail about the Santa, it doesn't change anything. I mean, what did you honestly need to put in there to explain why this thing malfunctioned or why it needed to be recalled? There was something about that just felt unnecessary, and probably why they didn't put it in the film. I don't really think it would have helped. Honestly, it might have hurt the film in some way. Like, you're like, oh, well, do we need that detail? I really don't think so. So kind of glad that they didn't put it in. And I really don't know what they could have added to the story to help flesh it out more as opposed to pad it. Yeah. Here's a... Because... Oh, go ahead. Well, I was just going to say with the characters, I mean, we really do get to know the characters through their conversations. Yeah. I mean, Tori and Robbie, like I said, their conversations are so detailed about who they are and their opinions. I mean, we kind of get to know them. I mean, and there's even kind of I felt like there's a throwaway line that I thought was going to kind of come back. Yeah. That maybe this is what needed to be fleshed out for Tori, is she absolutely hates Christmas, you know, but we never really get a sense of why. She just doesn't seem to care for Christmas movies. She doesn't care for the music. She doesn't care for the holiday. She's like, you know, the hell with this stupid holiday. And it did seem like you were like, okay, well, what's her beef with the holiday? So that's maybe a detail that I don't know if it would have changed anything, because clearly she's going to continue hating the holiday now. Even more, probably. Yeah, so I don't know if that detail would have
added anything to her or to the overall narrative.
Here,
I don't know. It's difficult.
here's a thought. The sheriff that you said dies way too early.
Yeah.
Make him ex-military and give him a little bit more screen time. Maybe he knows a little bit more about the technology. Not a lot, but just a little bit. Maybe he had heard about it, and he helps her take down the killer Santa, dies in the process.
There you go. That would have been cool.
Just a thought.
Yeah. See, it almost feels like this is an idea that maybe would have worked better in like an anthology movie, like that the one that you were talking about, Christmas Horror Story.
Yeah, yeah.
Something to where you had 3 horror-themed Christmas movies, or Christmas-themed horror movies, let me rephrase that, and stories, and you maybe compress them down into about 45 minutes apiece, and that's your story. If you'd have smashed this down to 45 minutes, again, not to knock it, but there's a lot you could have kind of trimmed out.
Yeah.
And just kind of really zeroed in on some details and just said, like, this is your story.
Yeah.
And I think it would have worked just fine. But
So, all in all, it's a decent movie. It just kind of feels like it drags out a little bit because of certain things there's certain elements that were left out that kind of made it feel a little lacking. Would you say?
And that's what I'm talking about. I don't know.
There's just something about it.
I think yeah, I feel like that's why I feel like it would have worked on a smaller scale.
Yeah.
As part of an anthology, because nothing feels incomplete as far as the story. It just feels like things are padded to extend the runtime.
Yeah.
And even some of the scenes, like I mentioned before, the sex death scene early in the film, that was a great use of that. Nothing about it felt like it was extended too long, because it was kind of juxtaposing one thing to another, and just the tension they built upon it worked.
Yeah.
But there were just so many other little things where they tried to pad it that it didn't. So maybe if they'd have done something a little bit more akin to that, to where it was a little bit more stylish, you might have been able to watch it and just not really think about it, because it would have been entertaining to watch them pad it out with such a stylized way of doing things. So,
and the original way it was written too, whenever something's written and it gets set to be released, obviously you have producers and things saying, hey, let's change this around, let's change this around. So I mean, there's all kinds of things that could be brought into play as far as certain things being padded and not being. Now, I would have loved to have seen at the end, and I think I had mentioned this to you maybe last week. It was off the mic, I think. But it would have been cool to see her, maybe beat the one Santa and then walk outside, and then you just see a bunch of Santas.
Yeah.
And have it end with a cliffhanger of her just going, oh, fuck, or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Which I'm kind of surprised they didn't, because the way it's kind of set up, if they wanted to do a sequel, I can't see why that would be impossible. Because are you telling me that this is the only Santa that didn't get recalled? I mean, you could easily say, okay, the same thing happened. These people didn't pay attention to the Santa that was in their store, or they didn't hear the story, they didn't get the recall notice, and then it goes awry. And you can tweak the story, say, hey, it did happen over here, but that's as far as you connect it. You don't have to connect the characters. You can write a whole new story around it.
Yeah, I mean, there's different people in the world. There's these Santas in all the malls.
Right.
So you could tell more story. Maybe there is a city where somebody knows a little bit about these Santas. Maybe there's some kid that figures out a way to... There you go, Macaulay Culkin versus Killer Robot Santa.
There you go. We need this movie now.
Now,
Home Alone 5.
Now the same guy that wrote it is the same guy that directed it.
Yeah.
He has quite a few films that he's done some work on. I mean, there's a handful here. I know one of the films that he directed. It's been a minute since I've seen it, but in 2019, a movie came out called VFW. Have you ever heard of that film?
I have heard of it. I've never seen it, though.
So, just a real quick synopsis for you, and for the ramblers out there. A group of old war veterans put their lives on the line to defend a young woman taking shelter in their local VFW post, who's running from a deranged drug dealer and his relentless army of drug-addled punks. Now,
I mean, just looking at the cast,
yes,
man.
I was getting ready to get into that with you. Quite a extensive cast here. You've got Stephen Lang, William Sadler, Fred Williamson, Martin Cove, David Patrick Kelly, and is it George Wendt?
Yeah, Norm, for those of the initiated.
You know, he was in another movie, not to get too off topic here, but he was in a movie called Family. Have you ever seen that movie?
I probably have to look something up about it. It doesn't ring a bell.
It's twisted. It's a horror movie, and he's the main character in it. He was like a mortician, and he would take people, melt their skin off, put their skeletons back together, and he saw them as his real family.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's got a really good twist ending, too, but I know that's really random, but I was just thinking about that, made me think of it.
But yeah, just the names you mentioned up top, I mean, that's a solid cast, in my opinion.
Yeah, no,
all solid actors.
Yeah, and I do like Joe. I'm just gonna say Joe. He knows that we're talking about him. I do like his directing style. I do feel like he's a solid director, most definitely.
Yeah, I'll give him credit to that all day in the film. It just, this came down to more of an, I don't know if he edited the film or not. But again, if you have to reach a certain, because I know that there's a certain time limit you have to reach to even get theatrical release.
Yeah.
And, you know, if you'd have cut out just a little bit, you might have been under that. And it's not like this was a full moon feature that you can do 70 minutes and get away with it, straight to video. So,
yeah, and that's the thing. I mean, there's a lot of factors to take into it, but from the directing standpoint and everything, you know, I think he wrote a decent script, and I think he directs really well. So I'll give him that all day.
Funny enough, looking at a review on IMDb, because they're so great over there. Of course, I'm sure it's just as more toxic over on Rotten Tomatoes. But this guy actually shat on the actors, which I cannot agree with that. I felt like the actors were solid, because he said a lot of the dialogue felt improvised. But you know what? That's, again, what I thought was natural. It felt like natural dialogue. You know, people just having a chat.
Yeah, you know, make the conversations feel like they're real.
Right. It might not have been a conversation I wanted to listen to or be a part of, but it felt natural to these characters.
And I think that works a little bit better, too. It's, you know, sometimes when people have conversations, even in real life, you're sitting there and people are talking about stuff and you're just like, I do not even want to hear what these people are talking about right now.
Yeah.
There's something about it that just makes it more realistic. Plus the fact, you know, they were out at the bar drinking. Of course, when you're drinking, you talk about crazy stuff that you don't normally talk about.
Right.
I mean, you know, it's just the way it goes.
Yeah. So again, you know, that shows right there that maybe other people will see the movie differently than I did.
Right.
Because everything that I said, this guy right here, he went against the grain and said right the opposite of what I said about the actors and the conversations.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about perception. I even looked at the reviews on Shudder for it, and there's a lot of good reviews. There's a few reviews that are not the best. One thing I hate that I saw on there, somebody was saying that they couldn't get the streaming to work, so they gave the movie 1 star because they couldn't even watch it. I'm like, that's not fair to the movie.
Yeah, that's stupid. I've seen people do that stuff as well on Amazon, where if a product was... No, people will give a movie a bad star or something like that because something... They hated the movie, but they're not reviewing the actual product.
Yeah.
Or something like that. Like, I like the reviewers who will say, hey, this isn't about the movie, this is about the product. You're getting maybe a DVD or a Blu-ray, and these are all the features, this is all the stuff you're getting. This is awesome compared to this or that. Whereas this is bare bones, or this is that. I feel like that's what your review needs to be on there.
Exactly.
You're explaining what you're getting, not the movie. The movie reviews are what Metacritic and all that shit is for.
Now, I know that you had said something before we started recording that this movie kind of gave you some thoughts on 80s Christmas horror films.
Yeah, kind of in the sense of the simplicity of it all. You know, it doesn't try to be anything more than what it is. And you know, when you take a look at something like a movie we kind of talked about last week, Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Mm-hmm.
It's a movie that is about a guy in a Santa outfit going on a killing spree. They kind of complicate it, but not quite. So it's kind of in that same vein where all they were really trying to do, I guess the complication of it all, was give this guy a reason to snap and go on a killing spree in a Santa outfit. That's about as the most complicated portion of that plot as you can get. And whether it works or not, that's neither here nor there. Same with this. Robotic Santa, malfunction. It's the same contrivance to get to the idea you're trying to get to, because it all started with Killer Santa, So I would kind of compare it. I would actually say, I know I was kind of shitting on Silent Night, Deadly Night last week. I would call this the better movie, but it's still kind of in that same, it's a simplistic plot where you know what you're getting.
Yeah.
It's a guy in a Santa outfit going on a killing spree. Robot in a Santa outfit going on a killing spree, even though it's technically a guy in a Santa outfit. But you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But it's the same idea, but it's just done in a different way. But you know what you're getting.
Yeah.
There's nothing complicated about it. And I think that's where I didn't want to just trash this movie in any way, because I didn't not have some fun with it.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to say that it doesn't deliver on its promise. When there are so many 80s horror films, probably even some in other decades, that I'm just kind of using that as my baseline, that do the very same thing. It's a simple premise, and that's all it is, and they deliver. Same here.
Yeah. You get exactly what you're advertised.
Mm-hmm. And even IMDb is kind of cutting me down a little bit, saying that the runtime was actually an hour and 20 minutes. So Shudder said hour or 89. So maybe someone got their time mixed up. So even at 80 minutes, that would even explain more as to why they had to pad it. Because even if you trim 2 minutes off of that, you're going into the 79 range, and you're way out of range there. I guarantee you the 2 minutes made the difference.
Yeah. It's amazing what a little bit of time can do in any kind of film that you see. Imagine if they cut down, Friday the 13th, any of those films. If they cut down, hell, the best way I can put it, get your shots ready here. Nightmare on Elm Street, Dream Child. Mm-hmm. That movie was heavily edited by the producers saying, this has to be cut out, this has to be cut out, this has to be changed, this has to be changed. And it was a very different movie before they did that.
Yeah.
So, I still, I'll be honest, I wanted your thoughts on the film today, because I've read about the film. I didn't get the chance to watch it last night. Mm-hmm. I'm still going to give it a watch just to see what my thoughts are on it. I got excited for it when I saw the trailer, so
sure.
I'm going to legitimately go in with, and talking to you about it has just cemented what my thoughts were anyways. I'm just going to go into it thinking, I'm going to watch a Killer Santa.
And yeah, that's all you need to think about.
Yeah, some movies you just go in and you just watch because you know that they're going to be something specific.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And that's what this is. So if that is all your expectations are, you'll love it.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad to hear, I'm glad to hear that it's not, some terrible film that is unwatchable or anything like that, because it didn't seem like that to me.
Yeah, and I think another thing I would probably say about it too is, even though the idea can be ludicrous about a robot Santa, if they had tried to lean into the hokiness of that idea, even for just a second, I think that would have derailed everything.
Yeah.
But there was never a moment where they said, no, we're not taking this seriously. So they maintained the tone, and I appreciate that too. There was never a moment where it was like, well, this is ridiculous. Ha, 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 wink, wink, wink. It was never that. The girl was like, no, there's a robotic Killer Santa out there, and we're all going to die. So you take it at face value. Ridiculous as that may be, we stick to your guns on that, which I appreciate.
Hell, I've got a perfect movie that you saw not too long ago, that I had seen years ago, that definitely goes into the hokiness and everything, and we all know how that movie is. Good old Uncle Sam.
Mm-hmm.
God.
Fuck that movie.
Now, speaking of Christmas Bloody Christmas and it being on Shudder, Shudder's been in the news a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I have a little bit of information on it. I think you have a little bit more. And I know that's something that you kind of wanted to touch on. You had mentioned it. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
Since it was kind of in the news, the very first thing, and I want to give a shout out to the Mutant Fam Twitter page, because they were quick to shut that shit down real quick, and I appreciated that, because clickbait articles are out in full force, and any way that they can get you to click on their article over some stupid shit, that's what they do. And I think it was on the website We've Got This Covered, which you talk about a clickbait website, that's one of them. And they put up Shudder is getting axed as AMC is in turmoil or some bullshit like that. Pretty much that Shudder is done, it's getting shut down, all that jazz. That is absolutely not happening. Okay, AMC right now is in a bit of a financial slump. They apparently bet or hedged their bets too hard on the streaming side of their business.
Yeah.
And that didn't pan out. So they've lost some money, which means that layoffs are coming. And that's not just on the AMC side. That's all their respective subsidiaries and families like Shudder. We even saw Craig Engler, who was the head of Shudder, step down, which, hated to see that. But it no doubt had a lot to do with what's going on over there, a lot of the layoffs and everything like that. And he probably did not either want to be part of it or felt like this is the thing that they needed to do to maybe keep the service alive. I don't know. I didn't dig into it. That's his choice. And, wish him all the best in his future endeavors. But yeah, it's, companies go through a financial slump and things happen, and I hate it, because a lot of people are going to lose their jobs, but at the end of the day, Shudder is not shutting down. Now, in saying that, that doesn't mean that we might not see a bump in our subscription prices. That's part of the nature of this beast.
Yeah.
I hate it. I know that a lot of streaming services are starting to look at ad-supported services to help cut down costs. I can respect that if that means that we can start to breathe a little easier, because I know Netflix, if they give us one more price bump, I'm done, because they have raised the price more than anybody over, the last couple of years. It seemed like every year they were we got to raise it and they would always do it just ever so slightly. It'd be like, well, we're raising it $1. Well, we're raising it $2. And we're going to raise it one more dollar. And it's like, yeah, but goddamn, dude, look where we're at now. We're at over $20 a month for your service, versus you take it HBO, you look at Paramount, you look at Peacock, you look at all these other services who provide equal, if not more than you, Netflix. Better, mind you, because few and far between do I actually watch something on Netflix. Just going to say that. I'm usually on one of these other platforms watching their shows, watching their movies, when Netflix will get me every now and again. And I still don't understand why I'm paying for it.
That's exactly how we are. I think we were going to watch 2 new series, I think, that came out on Netflix. I haven't watched them yet.
Yeah.
And not too long ago, they just canceled another show over there because the guy that created it, he went over to Amazon.
Oh.
And it was a really good show on Netflix. It was like the Midnight Club or something it was called, I think.
I don't know if I ever watched it, but
it's a new one. I think Heather Langenkamp actually did like narration for it or something.
Nice.
So,
and you know what? I'm at least hoping that's a factor for a lot of these guys, because Netflix is. I don't know if I'd want to send a series to Netflix. Like if Netflix came to me with a deal, it would be a hard deal to take.
Yeah.
Because I would want some safety nets in place. Because if the series didn't take off, I'd want to know that I could take it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Or it could still be in my control, because if they're going to plop it down and be like, it's canceled, then the hell with you, because that's not how that's going to work.
Well, and it drives me crazy too, because sometimes they do cancel shows that are actually doing really well.
Yeah.
And then nothing comes of it. But I guess at the same time, I could say that other places do that. I mean, look at Starz and Ash vs. Evil Dead. Ash vs. Evil Dead was doing really, really well.
Mm-hmm.
And it was still doing really well when they canceled.
Yeah.
So,
but there was something on that bottom line that just wasn't jiving
Yeah.
with them, and they were just like, no, we're not going to do it. But Netflix seems so willy-nilly about it. And I think that's why a lot of people were really concerned with Sandman, because there might not have been... I know that there were good reviews. Maybe the watch, the bingeability of it all wasn't as high as some of the other shows, but it's a deep show that me personally, I didn't want to binge every bit of it. You know, I took it in samples. I took it in pieces because I was like, it's a great show.
Yeah.
But it's a lot, but it's good. And we didn't binge it all in one damn night. And not everybody does anymore. God, you need a break, you know? Not everything is bingeable, and that wasn't one of them. And I think a lot of people were concerned that they were going to cancel it because they were so wishy-washy about it. It was like, well, I don't know. Because if it does great, it's like, well, season 2's, we've already signed it. That weekend is done, and they're just like, yep, season 2, let's do it.
Yeah. You know,
but that wasn't one of them.
And the thing that drives me kind of crazy, and I know this sounds weird, but one of the things that kind of does drive me crazy with Netflix, it's something that I like, but it also drives me crazy. These other streaming services, when they have a show that's new, they release it like they do on TV. You get a new episode every week, and then Netflix just drops everything on you all at one time.
Yeah.
I like that, and at the same time, I don't.
The model that I think Amazon has been doing lately, I actually like what they do, because to me, this gives you an option. They drop 2 episodes a week. So if you wanted to go to that next episode, you can. If you don't, it's there. You can come back to it, and then maybe you can come back to it when the next 2 episodes drop. Watch it at your leisure, but they give you 2, because sometimes I'm in that boat where you do get the 1, and then you're just like, oh man, I don't want to wait until next week.
Yeah.
And it's just like, they're like, well, we got 1 more if you want it. And that just kind of satiates that urge to binge, because you have that. You want that other episode. So they kind of give it to you, and you're just like, all right, thank you.
Yeah.
And then you feel fulfilled at that point because you got 2. You're like, all right, that was good. I got 2. So I don't know if they did that with Rings of Power, because I didn't watch that as it aired.
Yeah.
But I know with the Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, which is a show that I really highly recommend. I know it's not a horror show, but great show. They would do that 2 episodes a night or 2 episodes a week, and it would just... It feels like you get like it's done faster. I mean, but it's no more faster than what they do over at Netflix with dropping everything.
Right.
But still, it's just that you get to the end of an episode, you get that second episode, and it does feel like,
yeah,
I got that little extra, and it felt great.
That little extra closure.
So, yeah, like you're still left hanging for the next episode, but you felt like you got just a little bit more. Like you're full now, you know?
Yeah.
Like you ate enough, and then you just wanted a little bit more. You got it. All right, now I'm good.
Well, you know, these streaming services too, they might end up starting, you know, I don't mind the ads. I don't mind that they have those plans. I know a lot of people made a big deal like, oh, Netflix is going to start putting ads in. I'm going to leave Netflix. Okay, well, they're going to have different tiered plans. They're going to have ad-free plans. Like, we have Hulu for our, like, we use Hulu for our television. We don't have regular cable anymore. We just use Hulu.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you can do Hulu Live without ads. You can do regular Hulu Live that still has ads. Like, it exists. So if Netflix were to add, you know, start having ads play, not a big deal to me. Would I see how much the plan would cost extra if I did end up, you know, not wanting ads? Sure. I have Peacock right now. I signed up for Peacock was doing a New Year's deal. It's $1 a month for a year.
Hell, there you go.
I signed up for it, and it has ads, but I'm still getting uncensored content, you know, like what I would go see at the movie theater. I don't mind having a commercial or two. Like, it doesn't bother me, but what I could see a lot of these streaming services start to do, and I know that they're capable of it, they could actually roll out tiers where if you pay a certain amount, let's say Netflix. Let's just use Netflix as an example. They typically release every single episode of Stranger Things when they get, you know, a chunk of it done. Let's say they change their tiers and they're like, here's how the new tiers work. If you're on the base plan, you get a new episode every week. But if you pay for the more expensive plan, you get all the episodes at one time.
I could see that.
And I could see all of the streaming services start to do that. And it's I can see where AMC, and I always forget that AMC and Shudder are, you know, hand in hand. But I can see why AMC lost out on a streaming service because a lot of the things that they offer on their streaming service are available in other places.
Sure.
I mean,
And
not everything, but a lot.
I do want to kind of touch on that. I want to argue that point. I think that's another problem with their streaming platform idea. Granted, they probably banked a lot of this on the success of The Walking Dead. That's their bread and butter, has been for a decade. And I think they were hoping that was going to bring in, that streaming audience is like, hey, we're the only place that you can watch The Walking Dead. And of course, they'd have to, cut that off at Netflix. And I think that would have kind of helped them out if they had done that. I don't know if they have, but I know you can still find some of their shows on Netflix. But to have that and then have Shudder, but then also offer stuff on Shudder, on AMC Plus, and vice versa, I feel like you have you're asking people to pay for two platforms that you can get the same shit on.
Yeah.
And to me, that's your biggest mistake. Paramount recently combined Showtime with Paramount Plus. Smartest move they ever did.
Yeah.
Now, at first, I was like, okay, so does that mean everything rolled over? And I wasn't sure, but I feel like they need to work on it a little bit and kind of maybe create its own hub, kind of like what they do on HBO Max, where they have hubs where you can find everything.
Yeah.
But they did. They rolled everything over to Showtime or to Paramount Plus. You can still have the Showtime app if you want, but if you're already paying for it and it's lumped into your plan, you can access Showtime right there on the Paramount Plus app.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. That's one less app I have to worry about. One less app I don't have to have downloaded. You've combined it. Perfect. Disney Plus or Hulu. That's one of those I'm not sure they can do hand in hand because there is a different demographic. I don't think you'd want to see Welcome to Chippendales on Disney Plus.
Right.
Just, don't think it's going to work.
Well,
So that one I understand.
well, and like even with the companies sort of merging like they do, we have like I said, we have Hulu and we pay the extra for our Hulu Live. Well, bundled in with the Hulu Live is Disney Plus and all that.
Yeah.
And it's discounted. So I can log into my Disney Plus app through, basically I just sign in like through a provider, it says. You click Hulu, you sign into Hulu, then you're on there. We also have HBO Max, and we got HBO Max because we have HBO on our Hulu. All I do is sign in through that, and it's discounted. Even things like that work really well. And to be honest, I don't think Shudder is going anywhere for the simple fact that, in all honesty, when it comes to AMC's streaming services, I can assure you Shudder is probably making more money than AMC's regular streaming service. And the only reason I say that is because they created an app and a streaming service for a specific demographic. And that demographic is going to outweigh the average watcher who's just like, yeah, I need the AMC streaming app to watch this. Oh, wait, I don't need it because it's on this streaming app or it's on here.
Yeah.
Imagine if AMC just went, okay, let's put The Walking Dead on Shudder.
It would work.
Instead of putting it on the AMC app, put it on Shudder, because I can tell you right now, if they did that, you know how many people would be subscribing to Shudder? I mean, there's a ton of people that are doing it now, but if they were to just toss it over there and be like, okay, here you go. Imagine just Joe Bob reviews this Walking Dead episode or this Walking Dead episode,
which he did.
Yeah, bring it over. Let him review. They could do a whole other show. Watch The Walking Dead with Joe Bob, and they could watch all of it. Just I don't know. I like when they create streaming services for certain demographics. It's just like if you're somebody who likes anime, they have streaming apps for that. You're into the specifics, and I think I watch more on when I'm actually able to watch Shudder. I think I watch more on Shudder than I do anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
And the last time I got on Netflix, I can't even tell you. We were going to watch the new Wednesday series, and we haven't watched it yet. It's normally Hulu, sometimes Paramount Plus, a lot of Disney Plus here in our household, and Shudder. That's what it comes down to. But yeah, I had seen people saying, do not click on these links when it came to talking about Shudder being axed, and I saw Shudder was what's the word? Trending. Shudder was trending on Twitter, and I clicked it, and that was the first thing I saw was the Mutant fam. They were like, "Do not click this. It's clickbait." You know, way to go to the community for that. Like, hands down.
Because, fuck all this clickbaity bullshit. I mean, it's unnecessary. Unnecessary, because you're getting people worked up, but you're doing it for a dime. That's all it is.
Yep.
So
now, I honestly have nothing else right at the moment that I can think of. I know we we were kind of all over the place there for a minute, but I love when we have talks like that because I think it keeps it interesting. So,
for sure.
But yeah, if you don't have anything else, then you can do what you do best. Tell those wonderful horror ramblers out there where they can find us and answer the polls. People, we're paying attention now. We weren't sure where they were before, but we've got them now.
That's right. So, Ramblers, let us know how you felt about Christmas Belated Christmas, or how you felt about the Shudder debacle and AMC's fuck up over there, because it really is their fault, not Shudder. I know it's all the same, but I don't blame the people at Shudder. I blame the people at AMC for doing whatever. I don't even know what their stupid decision was. They made a bad financial decision, and everybody's hurting now, and people are losing jobs. But you can tell us all that on Twitter at Horror Ramblings. If you've got a lot more to say in a tweet just won't do, send us an email at horrorramblings@gmail.com. And if you love social media groups, you can follow us on Facebook and join our Facebook group and hang out with fellow horror fans like yourself. And you can even do that on Discord as well, and join us in our Ramblers room. It's a very special, exclusive room. Only certain people get Rambler status.
It's a VIP, everybody.
That's right. And you get to have group discussions just with Ramblers. You won't have to deal with the other people in that Discord. Just Ramblers, man.
And real quick on the Discord thing. The thing that I've always tried to tell the Ramblers, we are a judge-free zone. We are trying to create a community that will be supportive of the horror community that we love to see is what we're trying to make. So come on over to Discord, come over to the Facebook, join us, communicate with us. If you have ideas that you would like to discuss on the show, let us know and we'll bring them up. Like, that's what we're trying to do, is just create a sense of community. So I just wanted to say that real quick.
But no, absolutely, because if we love something that you don't, we're not going to judge you. If you love something we don't, we're not going to judge you. Like today's movie. If you absolutely fucking love the movie, good. I am so happy for you. If you hated the movie, that's fine. Just don't judge other people for loving it. That's all I'm saying. You're welcome to have that discussion, just not hateful. That's all we're saying. You can find us on Instagram to see an assortment of horror images. Maybe I should start posting these icons that I do with the special little thing, like I did last week with the Christmas.
That would be cool, Christmas actually. Thing. That would be really cool.
I need to start doing that. Maybe that's what I need to do. If you're feeling generous and want to support the show financially, you can head on over to patreon.com/pencil and paper productions to chuck in a buck and help this and other shows like it grow. And if you want to say nice things about the show, you can head on over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a 5-star review. And you can do that very same thing on Spotify if you're so inclined, and even answer our questions and polls that we post there every week. It's all appreciated. But most importantly, tell your fellow horror fiends to search for Horror Ramblings on the preferred podcasting platform. And if nothing else, keep up with any and all things at pencilpaperproductions.com/horror-ramblings. Links are in the show notes for your convenience.
And remember, guys, make sure you stay spooky out there.
This has been the Horror Ramblings podcast. Join us next time for even
This has been a Pencil and Paper Podcast Network production.